Welcome to Nashville and Beyond.
I'm Brian Copeland.
And I'm Zach Copeland.
And we're a father-son duo helping people buy, sell, and thrive in Middle Tennessee.
But this isn't just about business. It's also about our family and our community.
It's a front row seat to how we live, work, and serve right here in Music City.
So buckle up as we explore Nashville and Beyond. Well, there's something about stepping off a plane and realizing you're not home anymore.
Yeah,
You're not in Kansas.
Yeah, and there's something really nice about, like, when you take a trip that you want to take. It's not like a business trip or something you have to do, but something you really want to take. There's just a philosophical change that happens. You know, there's that old Mark Twain quote that says, "Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness, and many of our people need it sorely on these accounts." And I love that quote about travel because it really does, when you see the world through someone else's eyes, whether it be a travel just up the road here in Nashville to Kentucky, to Amish country, or if you're taking a trip to Dubai, it really just changes the way you look at things.
Yeah. Well, today's episode is the one about travel. We're going to be talking about where we've been, some things we've learned along the way, and why we think seeing the world really matters.
Yeah, and travel's been really different for both of us.
It has. I started traveling internationally when I worked on cruise ships, and I did that right out of college for about 4 years. Got to travel all over the world. I mean, I've been to 26 countries. The first one that I did was the contract that I did was in Hawaii. I was there for 6 months. Just one of the most beautiful, incredible places I've ever been. I miss it. I want to go back a lot.
Judy wants you there.
Yeah, I know Judy wants me there.
Judy,
so
if you're listening, he really wants to come.
I will come visit you some point. I promise, Judy. And going from the place where I was raised in the deep South and the Delta to international travel was a huge culture shock for me.
Yeah.
Especially going from everybody talks like this to suddenly there's all these other kinds of accents, and you have to learn to understand people and interpret what people mean and pick up on little nuances and things like that. So
Yeah, and I'd never been on an airplane till I was like 20 years old. We traveled when I was little. We would do things like going to Disney, but we would get in, the old Plymouth Champ and head down the interstate. My parents had cousins who lived in Daytona Beach, Florida, so we'd go down there a lot. But that was the limit of our traveling. We got to do, with my family being a Southern gospel singing group, we got to travel some with that, in the early years and do that kind of thing. But when I was younger, I always dreamed of going and seeing the world. And I always dreamed of going to all these places. I always wanted to go to Australia. That was number one on my list, and now I have no desire to go to Australia, which is so weird. But what got me really wanting to travel was just the romanticism of it. When you think about Germany, and when you think about the Czech Republic, there's just a romantic piece of it. And when I say romance, I'm not talking about falling in love. I'm talking about that genre that just feels so strong there.
Yeah. Well, once you've seen a little bit of the world, you want to see more and more and more of it. Some places just stay with you. Like for me, some of my core memories from travel include places like Greece, Turkey, obviously Hawaii. In Greece, I live in Nashville, so we have the Parthenon here in Nashville.
Yeah.
And I got to see the original Parthenon in Greece, and ours is in much better condition. But what remains of the Parthenon in Greece has been there for over 2,000 years. So it's just an incredible sight to see. I mean, going to like the Temple of Zeus and the Temple of Poseidon, and getting to walk the streets of Greece. We were a group of my friends that were on the cruise ship, and I were going out for a day of exploration in Greece, and we ended up taking the back route off of the Acropolis, which is where the Parthenon sits. It's just this giant rock formation that houses a bunch of different temples and monuments, and then you get to the very top, and there's a few other large temples, but then there's the Parthenon up on the top of the Acropolis. and you can go back down the way you came, which is a bunch of steps, or you can go off this back route. And we decided to go off the back route. And when we get there off the back route, we're walking down through what felt like a very ancient Greece. And we stopped and ate at this restaurant because there was this very attractive man who was like catcalling the girls in the group to get them to come in. And they were all just swooning over him because he was like a stereotypical Greek god figure. I mean, he was just jacked, had the beard, looked very much so like what you would imagine like Zeus from the movie Hercules looking like. So we get there and we're eating in this restaurant, and they don't bring out water, they bring out wine, and there's just table wine, and they keep filling it up and filling it up. And over us is this pergola that's covered in grapevines, and that's where they're getting the grapes to make the wine that we're drinking. And so we're just sitting there, and it's absolutely beautiful. Then I went to Turkey, Kuşadası in Istanbul, and when I was in Kuşadası, I was going to like this Turkish bazaar, which is basically a flea market, but everything there is way more expensive, and it's pretty nice stuff too. It's where you get like bathrobes and rugs and a hookah smoker pipes, I don't know, whatever they're called. And all of a sudden I'm shopping, and all of a sudden I hear this man singing, and everybody around me kind of stopped what they were doing and got down on their knees and started praying. And I realized that what was happening was it was the Muslim call to prayer, which happens 5 times a day. And it was that time of day for them. And there was, mosques obviously throughout the city, just like we have churches all around our cities. They've got mosques all around their cities. What's different is that usually at the top of a mosque is like a PA system, and the imam of the mosque, who's like the pastor of the church, will go up to the top, get on the microphone, and start singing the call to prayer. And it is just blasted on these speakers all throughout the community so that everybody can hear it at the same time, and they know, oh, this is when I need to get down and pray. And it was just the most beautiful, haunting melody I had ever heard. And it gives me chills when I think about it, because it was an incredible experience to see that from another culture. I got to visit St. Petersburg, which is in Russia, for those of you that don't know. I was doing a cruise in the Baltic, and so Sweden, Finland, it left out of Southampton, London, went to Sweden, Finland, and then we went up to St. Petersburg, Russia, and it was really cool because I got to see some beautiful Russian architecture while I was there. And then, of course, I worked in the gospel industry, so I got to travel a lot with that. Most of that was domestic travel on a tour bus, which was not glamorous.
No.
Whatever you've heard about traveling as a musician, it's all lies. It's not glamorous at all. It's not fun. You're sleeping in what is essentially a coffin, and you're sleeping next to 12 other people, and they're all in coffins, and you can reach out and touch all of their beds, basically. And there's no privacy. And you may get to a venue, and they have asked ahead of time if you can provide showers for the crew and meals for the crew and a green room for the crew. And then you get to the venue and the hot water doesn't work, or it's some church gymnasium with rusty old floors and stuff. So but what about your travel?
What's funny you bring up the coffins, because I took a trip to Japan and to Thailand recently, and I posted a photo on my Facebook about a capsule hotel that I stayed in, and everybody freaked out. And I posted it when I was going to sleep. I woke up the next morning to all these comments about, how did you sleep in that? Well, because again, being on buses in the music industry, you're sleeping in a casket the whole time, so it was no big deal for me there. So it's funny that you bring up the same exact thing there. Tokyo and Thailand was it was life-changing for me. I really took some time to think about why I do what I do, and what I want the next part of my life to look like. Tokyo, and I mean this, I would eat off the floors in their bathrooms there. That's how clean it is. I've never been to a cleaner place, a place where they respect each other so much. They respect how they take care of things, how they leave things. I fell in love with these things called onsens, which is, their version, their bathhouses. And over here in the United States, we've kind of grossed out our idea of what a bathhouse and sauna look like. And it's just really turned us off where it's like, I don't want to go to that mess of what could happen. But over there, it's a beautiful thing. It's a very it's super clean. It's where they do their baths and showers. And the hotel I stayed at in Tokyo was more where if you were visiting from Osaka to Tokyo, that's where you would stay. So there was just a lot of Asian folk there and following in their cultures. So it's weird going from Tokyo to the cleanest place I've ever been in my life to Bangkok, which was the dirtiest place I've ever been in my life. And just, literally I was talking to my mom on the phone, walking down the street and a rat runs right across me, and you would never see that in Japan. You go, ooh, so you like Japan better? No. They're both wonderful in their own ways. I absolutely fell in love with the Thai culture, fell in love with the food, fell in love with the people. When you were talking about going to Greece, one of the things is you think about when you think about going to the Parthenon, you think you're going to be out in the middle of the country, you're going to drive there for miles, and then that's the only thing out there. And when you go to places like the pyramids and to the Parthenon, you're surrounded by a metropolitan area. And getting to Thailand, I'd seen all these temples, and I thought, okay, I'm going to be going out into the middle of the countryside to see these places. And no, I mean, you're right there in the urban core, and you'll go into the most historic city there, which I'm not going to say the name of it because I will butcher it. But literally, while they had that historic capital and all the buildings there, it was backed up right to the little city that's there, and that's really cool to see, and to be able to find those little restaurants and all that stuff. So the Asia trip, I never dreamed really. I always wanted to go to Asia, but I really didn't think it'd be possible, and I wish I'd gone years ago. Being 53 and going now, gosh, I wish I had this experience in my 30s. Now in my my 20s, I worked in the music industry, and we would do a lot of work with the symphony orchestras in other cities like Budapest, the Czech Republic, and Prague, Germany, those kind of places. So got to enjoy some travels there. My first international trip, besides cruises, which you're going to the Caribbean on, you did a very different thing for cruises. You got to do the Europe and all that stuff. But most of us here in the States, we're going to like Mexico on a cruise, and
we call them booze cruises.
And you're really not getting culture there. You're getting the Americanized version of things when you go. I think one of the best things about traveling is being stupid. Because sometimes when you don't know the dangers of traveling and the things you shouldn't do, you just get to enjoy it a little bit more. When I was my first time, again, traveling globally, I went to England, and I wanted to go see where, full disclosure, I'm a Winnie the Pooh freak. And this year we're celebrating 100 years of Winnie the Pooh. And so I wanted to go see where Winnie the Pooh's 100-acre wood was. So, back then, I didn't have a cell phone with me at all. We didn't have GPS or anything like that. So I figured out there was some bus that would take me out to the Winnie the Pooh town. And so I chartered a bus, or I jumped on a bus from London and drove all the way out to the 100-acre wood and got to walk around where Winnie the Pooh's stories were inspired and all that stuff. And that will always stick in my mind. That's such a precious, precious memory.
I know Winnie the Pooh has a British accent because of the way he says Christopher Robins, but I always just assumed that he was a British bear living in like
Orlando.
The woods were in Pennsylvania.
Totally.
So not all travel's vacation. Traveling for work definitely is different. We've talked about, we worked in the gospel music industry. When I was on cruises, people think, oh, it must be so great when you get to work on a cruise ship and you get to travel for free all the time. And from the outside looking in, sure, it looks really great. But the reality is that you're typically a young entertainer in your early 20s, maybe mid 20s, and you're traveling to all these exotic places that you've never been before in your life. And your options are sit on the boat all day while the ship is docked and not do anything, and save money,
Mm-hmm.
or spend all your money and go out and explore these cities and do the things and get the photos and do the boat rides. And in Hawaii, I had this opportunity to go paragliding over the coastline of Kona, which is on the Big Island in Hawaii. And I was with Trevor, one of my exes at the time. We were up in the air, and we're paragliding, and we look down, and there are humpback whales underneath us that we can see from 200 feet up in the air, and we see them swimming down around underneath us, and it's just incredible. Of course, snorkeling when you have dolphins that swim by, or sea turtles that swim by, and you get to see all the clownfish and the coral reefs and all that kind of stuff. It's just incredible.
Yeah, my travels, you were talking about work. I had a joyful, wonderful previous career as a keynote speaker. So I was out, 200 and something days a year doing keynotes. And I remember there was one time I got to go to Calgary, and which is a gorgeous city, but I was so tired. I literally got into Calgary. I went to sleep. I spoke, and then I went back to sleep. I didn't go enjoy the city because I was just too tired to do it, And then I remember there was one day where I was in 3 cities in one day. I had a breakfast speaking engagement, and then I went to an airplane, and then I went to a lunch speaking engagement, and then I got on the plane again that had a night speaking engagement. And, travel became just, and I got those amazing places, but it just became tiring.
Yeah.
And I didn't really get to enjoy the cities I was going to. And then after speaking, when Micah was born, I said, no more travel. And then I got involved with the National Association of Realtors. And then that opened up to travel because I became, an officer and a volunteer there. And when I became an officer, I got to go to some wonderful places, but I got to take my family with me. And so, this was before you were around, and, the kids got to go to, the Virgin Islands and see that. They got to go to Idaho on a retreat. And so, Micah even said the other day, he was like, are you ever going to go back and work with the National Association of Realtors? Because he really enjoyed that travel so much. So, while I enjoy business travel, it's just a lot funner when you get to balance it yourself.
Yeah.
So
I think also Micah probably enjoyed the attention that he got. He felt like a celebrity while he was out there. Totally. So talk to me real quick about when you can travel in real estate and still handle customers. How does that work?
That was one of the hardest things going away to Thailand, because I specifically chose January because that's our quiet time. And the joy is and this is one of the secrets that we don't like to talk about, but you need to know as a consumer, we work all the time and we can work from anywhere. We don't have to be in our marketplace. There are realtors who do not live in their marketplace, and they don't tell you. I know of someone who sells a boatload of real estate in Chicago. They do not live in Chicago, nor have they lived in Chicago in years. Yet when you go to this person's website, they are a Chicago agent. And you say, well, how do they show property? They have buyer's agents who work in those marketplaces. Okay. Had another friend of mine who ran an entire business from Amsterdam, and no one knew that person was in Amsterdam the whole time. So there's always this paranoia and fear of leaving because people think, well, you're not here to sell my house. Well, when I was away, it was a different day over there. So while y'all were asleep, I was working on things. Yeah. And so I chose January specifically and February because that's our quietest time. Of course, when I left, it got busy on you, and you ended up having some of the most, you were taking buyers under contract. You took some of our listings under contract that had been sitting for a while. And so, it's hard to pick those times, but when we do get to travel, and you're going to see us share our travels on Instagram. We have some trips coming up. And know that when we go travel, that we're also working the whole time. We take work breaks all the time. Yeah. And we return every call. And if the phone rings and we're in the middle of Disney World, we're taking the call. Yeah. I mean, that's just how it has to be.
Yeah. I'm sure some of the people that we've been in line with for rides at Disney World or Epic Universe or wherever, they're like, what are these people doing? This is Disney World. Get
off the phone.
Get off the phone and relax. And we're like, okay, we're trying to make money here so we can afford this trip. Thanks.
Yeah.
But there's how you travel. which I think is really important to talk about, because you can either do it alone as a solo traveler, Lord, excuse me, or you can go out travel, or you can go out with people, whether it's family or friends. So, I have done a lot of my travel solo. Almost all of my international travel I've done as a solo traveler. I didn't have any family with me, didn't have, friends with me. I would just get off the boat and go explore these cities that I was in. And I got to take a solo trip to DC a couple years ago. It was a couple years ago.
Yep.
And that was amazing. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. But we've also taken a lot of family trips together too. There's a part of traveling on your own that is really, it feels very freeing, because you get to do what you want to do. And, for someone like me who is a person who values solitude and quiet, if I don't have an itinerary before I go somewhere and have not pre-purchased tickets, I have a tendency to just kind of lounge around in the city that I'm in. So all the time that I spent in Hawaii, 50% of that time I was just laid on a beach somewhere, just taking in the sun. I mean, which is great. There's no better beach in the world to lay on than the beaches in Hawaii, because there's the black sand beaches and the green sand beaches and the red sand beaches and what have you. But there's a lot of value in planning a trip ahead of time as well, and that's something that you're so good at.
Yeah, and I mean, I love traveling with our family. We have a family who loves hotels, who loves airports. Michael wanted to have his 6th birthday party at TSA. That is my dad has a friend of his who works for TSA, and we were literally going to have his birthday party at TSA. It was actually a little bit later because it was when COVID hit, and then COVID hit, so we couldn't do it there. But we're going to ask, is there a way for him to do it there at the airport? So I have that family who loves that, but in that comes a lot of responsibility on me.
Yeah.
And I have this burden of perfection, because I want to make sure that everything goes well for y'all. And if it doesn't go well, then I feel a lot of stress.
Mm-hmm.
So traveling solo for me is just so freeing. There were days, because I took a trip to DC last year like you did by myself, and just to, have a plan and then say, no, I don't want to do that. Instead, I'm going to go explore Teddy Roosevelt Island, which I've never heard of before, and I just Googled it and found out about it, and just to go enjoy that.
Everybody there has mustaches, right?
Totally, and bird watches. And then I was watching this video. It was either on Instagram or TikTok or something, and it was the people you should never travel with. And I was laughing because this is my family in some cases. And I will add one to what he said, but one of the characteristics he said was never travel with anyone who has to recharge their battery in the middle of the day.
Guilty.
And I was thinking to me, it's oh gosh, that's Zach. Because I remember we were at Mall of America the first time with you, and I could just see your battery gone. I always say, I told somebody the other day, I said, Zach's is like a second generation iPhone. You put it you charge it up, and then it's at 100%, and then you get it unplugged and you get going, and 5 minutes later it's and it's dying.
I took a nap in the Mall of America.
And so that's what it was like. I was like, okay, his battery is dying. So we went over to the Marriott and found some couches, and I just let him lay down and recharge, and then he was good to go. So that's what one of the videos says, is someone like that. The second one is never travel with a picky eater. You have Esther, who is just I just want to eat only this and only this.
And she'll take forever to do it too.
The third person he said to never travel with is someone who's broke.
Yeah.
Which, as a family, we're always going to be supporting each other. So it really doesn't. I put Micah on that one if that was the case, because Micah's got expensive taste, but doesn't ever have money because he spends it on Lego and all that stuff.
Burns a hole in his pocket.
But the one I will add to never travel with or even listen to before you go traveling is the paranoid person. Have you seen that? Have you seen Bridesmaids?
Oh, yeah.
That scene where she's back in coach class and all the other bridesmaids are up in first class, and she gets next to this lady, she goes, I had a dream. The plane went down. You were in the dream. That paranoia. And I remember getting ready for my trip and talking to a very dear friend of mine, and that person kept giving me a laundry list of all the things to not do, how I need to be concerned about stomach viruses, and how I need to be concerned about pickpockets, and how I need to be worried about prostitutes, and how I need to be worried about. And it was just for 20 minutes, it was just this load of all the things of travel I should worry about. And finally, I just had to say, hey, let's stop this. And I remember getting on a motorcycle in Thailand and going, this is so reckless, because I could fall off of this and fall off and have brain damage and die over here, and no one would ever know it. But that's what paranoia does.
Mm-hmm.
Just live life and enjoy living life.
Be in the car accident.
Just enjoy the car accident, right? And there's some joy in traveling when I go back to my statement about being stupid about stuff, because sometimes not knowing the dangers out there, it's just nice. And when I got over there, you and I had this talk, because you were like, do you know how many motorcycle accidents there are in Thailand? I'm like, I have not seen, and I went into this soapbox about, have not seen one prostitute, haven't had one person come up to me and proposition me for anything. I haven't seen any dirty water. I haven't seen any pickpockets. I walk down the middle of the street after midnight, no problems whatsoever, in the roughest part of town. And it's just nice to live and travel in that freedom without that piece. Now, when it comes to like decision making, though, because we travel a lot together as a family, how do you feel that shared decision making works as a dynamic?
There is no shared decision making. There is none. Poppy builds an itinerary, and we do it because he's worked on it, and this is, I mean, you certainly ask ahead of time, are there things here that y'all are interested in doing? And so we plan, and I'm talking about like larger family trips. Like the QuiltCon thing, for instance, because we're going to QuiltCon next week. You texted me and said, hey, give me a list of the things that you want to do. And so I sent you that list, and you built out the itinerary for us. But like, whenever we go, I'm trying to think of.
Like when we went to California, I gave y'all a survey.
Yeah.
And I said, what is your top things to do?
Yeah.
And then I took that survey and took the top 6 and then had y'all prioritize.
Yeah.
And what was so weird is the number one for everyone, not number one, but like in the top 3 was going to do movie studio tours. And I never thought that would be in it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. Go ahead.
So you do definitely, like, it's like we have a free choice from the items that you've selected for us to choose from. And I think you choose those things because these are the things that they're all most likely going to find common ground in. And I appreciate that, because if it was a free-for-all where you were like, I want y'all all to go research something here in this city that you're interested in doing, and we'll all decide what we want to do, there would just be a hodgepodge of totally different activities. Like Dad would be like, oh, I want to go to a library, and I'll sit there for 2 days and read and just relax and chill. I would say I want to go to museums and art galleries and exhibits, or maybe some live music. Micah would say,
I want to go to Bourbon Street.
I want to go to wherever Bourbon Street is and whatever the Lego store is there.
Right.
And Esther, gosh, there's no telling. She'd either say, I want to go skydiving or snowboarding, or, let's go shark fishing, or, she'd say, let's go watch a drag queen show or a theater show. So it's good to have those parameters built in. So I do appreciate that a lot. And now let's talk about how we navigate conflict while we're traveling, because, while we don't necessarily think that we have a lot of conflict or family, maybe just quarrels during travel, I think every family does.
Yeah. And
there's ones that we've had that, I can't think of specifically off the top of my head, but little tits and tats, or whatever it's called, tit-tats, that that maybe Mike and Esther will get into it with each other. Or I've never seen you and Dad argue, but I'm sure you've argued at some point while we've been on the road somewhere.
Anytime you're together with people in a non-freedom situation, because when you're on vacation, you're kind of in prison together. Mm-hmm. It's a happy prison, but we're all going to Disney today together, or we're all going to Knott's Berry Farms together, or we're all doing this together. There is no it's all we. If one wants to ride this, then we're all going to ride it. That's what we do. And so, and the joy is we get along with a lot of that stuff. We all tend to say, yeah, I'd really like to do this. The problem for me comes in is because everybody's just that. I don't care what we do. And then I'm like, well, I need you to make a decision. Like there's been times I've taken something to you and it's like, what do you want to do? Like, I don't care to decide. No, I'm telling you because I don't know.
Yeah.
And I want you to decide so I don't have to. But, the family's kind of push that on me to say, we really don't care. So somebody has to make the decision. So you just make it and we'll be happy with it. So, the kind of tiffs we see are typically just from just being together too much. And it's usually in the house. We always have to get like an Airbnb because there's so many of us and everybody has their own individual needs inside the house and everything. So, we don't seem to have problems when we go to eat. We're like, it is what it is. This is what we're going to have.
Yeah.
And you'll find something
Yeah.
to eat there. So, the conflict we have has been so minor. We tend to agree on where we want to go visit. You and me and the little ones, we're all big roller coaster freaks. We'll ride everything. Greg will not ride a carousel.
Right.
But he loves going to theme parks because he likes sitting down while we're riding the rides and getting on the phone and talking to people. He loves doing that.
Talking to whoever's sitting next to him on the bench.
So this summer I asked him, I said, what are we going to do this summer? He goes, I want to go back to California with the family. I was like, and do what? He goes, go to the theme parks. I want to go to Knott's Berry Farm again. I'm like, but you didn't ride anything. He goes, yeah, but I got to talk on the phone and walk around, and I like the way it felt there. So, that's part of conflict, but it comes with it. But beyond the destinations, there's absolutely something deeper. And when you think about why we travel, travel changes you if you will allow it to change you.
Yeah.
We get so caught up, and especially being from the South, we think that we are the center of the universe. I think if we're talking to someone from New York or Pennsylvania or wherever, they're going to say the same thing. But since we're in the South, we are very Southern centric. We believe that the world revolves around the South and time zones, and it's us. And when you get away, you start seeing the value of all these other cultures and the rich foods, the rich religions and faiths they have. Going to I'm not Buddhist. Not
Buddhism.
Buddhism. That's a White Lotus tip. That's one of the reasons I want to go to Thailand too. But to explore other religions. And when I went in Japan, I went to my first shrine, and he taught me how to pray, he taught me how to respect the shrine space. And in that, there's the formula for what they do, but inside that formula, there's something that leaves freedom to you. And during my freedom time, I've had big tears well up in my eyes. And then going into Buddhist temples in Thailand, and again, that's not how I worship or how I believe, but there was something magical about seeing how other people worshiped. And seeing those cultures just really open so many of your eyes to the humility that people have in other countries that we sometimes miss. How about you?
Yeah, I think I agree that growing up in the South, and this is really true of anywhere, when your only exposure to other is television or media, you are getting secondhand, third-hand, fourth-hand information about something.
Such a good point. Yeah.
And so you are taking what this person's telling you as if it's the truth, when in reality, all of the media outlets have got ulterior motives, and they have certain narratives that they want to spin things in a certain light of. And I think about my birthplace and where I grew up, and a lot of those people who think of New York, even I won't even get into the international stuff. They think of New York and Los Angeles and Chicago as just these liberal hellholes where there's just rampant crime everywhere. And statistically speaking, you're safer in those cities than you are in a lot of these smaller towns. You're more likely to get a good education in these cities than you are in these smaller towns. And I'm not, hating on small towns, because I'm from one and there's value in that. But when your only perspective of the rest of the world is from what someone else is telling you it's like, you can't take that and believe it and accept it as gospel, because it changes you when you go out and see the joys of other communities and the sufferings of other communities, and the love and the way love is shown and expressed, and seeing other cultures celebrate milestones in different ways. I think about like a bar mitzvah or a bar mitzvah. which are things that I've never experienced in person, but I respect those things, and I would never, ever, equate those things to being these weird, hokey pokey celebrations, because that's not what they are. So I look at international travel as mandatory. I wish that every college in America had a requirement that one semester was spent abroad.
And I just don't think it's even just only international. I remember when Micah and Esther were early in elementary school. I went and talked to one of their teachers, and and at that point, there's 50 states. They'd been to 42 of them each, and I asked the teacher, "What can we do to help enrich our kids more?" And the teacher said, "Your two children are the only kids in this entire school who have a world perspective on things in the classroom. So when we're teaching about the continental divide, Micah says, 'Oh, I've been there.'"
Mm-hmm.
And where most people think it's like a gap in the ground that you stand on, Micah understood that this is what the continental divide is. This is where the water changes the flow.
Mm-hmm.
He had someone tell him about there with his eyes when he was 6 years old, and he can recite that. And so the teacher was like, pull them out of school all you want, because they're the ones who understand everything, and they're the ones who are enriching the other kids. When we're talking about these other cultures that are American cultures, they're the ones to share that.
Yeah.
And so I'm very proud of the travels that all three of you got to do. A lot of your travels happened, obviously, with the cruise industry, but with Micah and Esther, to be able to open them up to what they've done, it feels really good as a parent. I wish every parent could give that to their child.
Yeah, it's a really good gift, and if you're if you've got a kid that's hard to buy for, even if they're an adult kid and you just can't figure out what to get them, gift them a trip to a city. And it can be a domestic location, or it can be an international location. There's this statistic, and I don't know how accurate this number is, but it's like 80% of Americans have never been more than 250 miles from the place they were born. And that is insane to me. Are you going to look that statistic up right now just to fact check me? I'm probably way off base on that, and if I am, then please soften the blow. But it does inform also how you live back home, because when you go to these other countries, or even other cities in America, and you see people who face the same kind of struggles that you face, and who have the same kind of financial worries that you have. People from Southeast Arkansas, where I'm from, had this idea that everybody in New York is rich because it's New York City. How could they not be rich? And as many times as I've been to New York, I can tell you that's not true. There are broke, homeless people in New York.
Yeah.
There are very low poverty wage people living in New York, low middle class people living in New York. The same rarity that there is of people in your town that are ultra rich is statistically the same as it is in a place like New York or Los Angeles or California, because there's just that many more people there. So you go out and you see all these things, and you come back home and you realize, hey, people are not so different from me.
No.
So
I went down an internet hole today before I came over here to record this with you, and that was the Miss Teen South Carolina answer to the question of most people can't read a map. Why do you think that is? And it's because some people don't have maps in the U.S. and the Iraq and I went down that hole again and had to go back and watch the video of her today talking about that experience. And it's so salient to this travel episode because that's back to your statement. Most people don't leave that area, and I'm not saying that Miss Teen South Carolina didn't do that, but has she not traveled, when she's thinking that people in South Africa needed an American education, so it just reminded me of that.
The funniest answers of all time.
It was so spectacular. So let's make this practical. If you're going to travel, you got to travel wisely.
Yeah.
So, as you're preparing, there's things you have to do to get ready, whether it be domestic or international.
Yeah. Some of the domestic things that you want to do is think about how you're going to do laundry. If you are gone for a week and a half or 2 weeks and you are not taking a lot of clothes with you, chances are you're going to be stinking by day 5.
And you taught me something I didn't know.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of detergent sheets before.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are these things called detergent sheets, and it's like, I don't know, Tide makes them.
They're hard to find.
Yeah, other companies make them too, but it's basically like it has the texture and the shape of a dryer sheet, but it is just detergent, and it's like freeze-dried detergent, basically powdered detergent that is formed into this sheet, and you can cut it to whatever size you want. And if you're traveling somewhere and all you have access to is the sink in your bathroom or, the bathtub that you're in, you can fill it up with a little bit of water, drop that detergent sheet in, and then boom, you are able to do your laundry.
I had no clue. And so like, and they're scent and odor, they're scent and dye free.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I was able to take those with me. And it was a life changer because when I was getting packed up, you're like, well, you got to get detergent sheets. I'm like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
And luckily Target had them. Walmart didn't, but
Okay.
Target did.
Okay.
So, and then currency exchange. What was so funny about Tokyo, I didn't have to use any cash. Most places in Tokyo don't take cash. They just you try to use it and they're like, no. It's so very Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover oriented there. Yet when I got to Thailand though, no cards.
Mm-hmm.
There's a thing over there called Grab, which is their version of Uber. So I thought, okay, I'm going to use this Grab so I can use my credit cards with it. So when I got to the hotel, he's like, no, I don't cash. I'm like, he goes, I'll take you to an ATM. And I'm like, no, I don't need to go to the ATM. I've got cash, but I would prefer not to use it. No, I mean, you have to use cash over there. So if you're you need to know your currency exchange pieces. Most people don't know that your banks, you bank at like Wells Fargo, right? You can go to Wells Fargo and get currency before. We bank at Bank of America. So I had it's BAHT is the Thai currency. I took about the equivalent of $900 with me in BAT, which was more than what I needed to get going. Pretty much when you need to leave the airport, you only need like 500 BAT for the cab and the a meal. But then ATMs are everywhere, and the conversion rates are really good there.
Yeah.
So the currency piece, you got to think through. It's good to have it to take it with you initially, but make sure that you're just using ATMs abroad. But they do have a higher fee, like $7 for an ATM fee, but that's really minor when you're looking at it.
Yeah, and then also speaking of banks, a couple of tips if you're going to travel is, and it's to a country you've never been to before, alert your bank before you go so that you're not over there trying to use your debit or credit card and it doesn't work, it's locked up. And then also check your bank and find out, hey, if I use my debit card or tap to pay or my credit card over in this country, how much does that cost? You mentioned that I bank with Wells Fargo, and I do, and I have a credit card through Wells Fargo, and I can use that card at any country in the world, and it automatically converts it to the local currency and does a currency transfer there. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and you and I talked a little bit about packing and everything, and you and I both like to take a lot of stuff because we want to have something for everything, but we also can travel really light. You're a big Osprey bag fan.
Love Osprey.
So, when you're packing, you got to think through, if you are bringing home less than 50 pounds, buy a suitcase over abroad. Mm-hmm. I went to the flea market over in Thailand. I didn't shop in Japan. I shopped in Thailand. I bought a humongous bag over there, hard case luggage. It was $9 US. Filled it full. It was 49.1 pounds for it to come home. And so I was only with a backpack until that point. But you got to be careful because it's $100 to check anything below 50 pounds. But when you go over 50 pounds, it's $600, Zach.
Yeah.
$600. So you got to be really strategic about the way you're thinking about traveling and how you're packing. For me, I wore a lot of black because you don't see the stains on that. And while it was murderously hot, in Thailand, you're just getting dirty anyway. So I just kept wearing the same things over and over and using those detergent sheets.
Yeah. Luckily for you, you had those detergent sheets.
Yes, I did.
Just a couple of other quick tips before we move on to our Nashville Rathers. You want to make sure that you alert the embassy in the country that you're traveling to that you'll be in country. Heaven forbid some kind of disaster happens while you're there. You want that embassy to know that you are in the country so that they have a record of it and they're able to come and get you. You want to avoid tourist traps, and it's very easy to recognize a tourist trap. If you look around and everybody in this foreign country looks like you're in a tourist trap.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then also you want to respect the local customs and traditions. You talked about the lesson that you got in the meditative prayer and the temples in Tokyo. And there were things that you had to research beforehand about how do I dress to go out to these areas? What kind of clothes do I need to wear? Especially when you're traveling abroad, the reality is that in many countries, men and women are a different class of citizens.
Yep.
And I don't support that. I don't agree with that, but it is what it is when you're in a foreign country. And so it's just something that you want to be aware of. Also, as a queer person, there are things that you've got to research before you go into these cities. Last thing you want to do is, be hate crimed in a foreign country because you're queer, and then you go to the police station and find out that, being queer is against the law, and you just told on yourself.
Yeah.
So those are things you definitely want to keep in mind when you're traveling. Do you have anything else you want to add to that?
I think also and this is, you went from a deep place, I'm going to a shallow place now, mobile phones. Mm-hmm. There's always these eSIM cards, but if you're on any place like AT&T or Verizon, the international daily plan is like $10 to $12. So why get an eSIM card? Literally when I landed in all these countries, my phone worked immediately. I had all my data there, everything. So I really wouldn't fall into the eSIM card thing. If you're on Verizon, you don't have to tell them you're traveling. You just get over and it says your day pass is going. Now be careful. Don't FaceTime your daughter Esther from Mount Fuji for an hour because you'll use all your data up. Yeah. Which I learned very quickly. And Esther was like, so we stopped the whole FaceTime thing. So that's all I would do before we go into our Nashville Rathers. Yay. So, what would you rather have, Zach? Would you rather do beach vacation or city exploration?
This is tough for me because I do love the beach and the ocean, but I also really love the modern amenities of a city and restaurants and museums and things like that. So, gosh, I'd probably go with city exploration. What about you?
Well, yesterday we were at lunch with the president of NAR next year, Christine Hansen, and she goes, I got a question for you, Zach. She said, do you like crispy or, because she knows I hate crispy bacon. That's why she asked you that. And she knows I hate the beach and she loves the beach. So she wanted to check that out. So this is so easy for me because everybody knows I hate the beach. I don't like sand. I don't like heat. I don't like being dirty. I don't like the sun. Absolutely a city vacation.
Now, would you rather take an international trip or would you rather go on a road trip?
Can you tell, alone or with family?
Alone.
International.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. International in a heartbeat. When it comes with family, though, road trip all day, every day. We have the best road trips in the world. We laugh our heads off. And I'd do that in a heartbeat. How about you?
My answers are the same. I think if I'm going to be alone, I'd rather go out into the world. And if I'm going to be with y'all, I'd rather do something close to home. So,
solo travel or group tour travel?
Solo.
Same.
Yeah.
We're going to Italy this summer, and it's on a tour. And honestly, Zach, I am worried to death that I'm going to pull what little hair I have left out of my head.
Who's the tour company? Is it like an EF tour?
EFS,
oh,
yeah.
Nice.
And so, I'm going to be with a group, and I'm going to try to suck it up and be a team player here.
Now, would you rather plan every single thing, or would you rather go somewhere and just wing it?
Again, it's whether I'm with family or not.
Yeah.
If I'm truly being myself, not adaptive behavior, I'm winging it.
Yeah.
I'm going to wake up and say, what does the today hold? What does TripAdvisor say would be great to do? What's happening in the city today that I wouldn't know about? Absolutely winging it. But unfortunately, with the family, I don't have that luxury.
Yeah. I definitely like to plan things.
Uh-huh.
Even if I don't stick to the plans, I still like to plan things, and so I would rather plan it out for sure.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, today we talked about cruise ships and tour buses. We went to Tokyo, to Thailand, to Greece, Turkey, Hawaii, and the Baltic. We talked about business travel, vacation travel, about going alone and going with our families. But underneath all of it, I think what really stands out is how travel stretches you and changes you. It changes how you see the world, how you see the other people on this planet, and even how you see yourself.
Yeah.
Whether you are stepping into a culture that feels completely different from your own, or you're just learning how to pack lighter and slow down, travel is going to teach you things you didn't know you needed to learn. And that's something that I think we're both really grateful for.
I think that's exactly it. And, travel just isn't about, Mike and Esther's got these state maps where we put pictures of where they've been. It's not, and those are nice to have, but it's not just about checking countries off the list or getting that perfect photo for Instagram. It's about the perspective. It reminds you that the way you live isn't the only way to live.
Yeah.
It teaches patience and curiosity and humility. And whether you're flying halfway around the world or just taking a road trip a few hours away, the point is to stay open to the people, the food, the language, the differences. That's where growth really happens. So wherever you're heading next, we hope you go with a little bit of curiosity and come back with a bigger view of the world.
And if you've been somewhere that changed you, tell us about it. Send us a message, comment on Facebook or Instagram on one of our posts, and hope you hold on to that.
And that is the Beyond of Nashville
That's right.
and Beyond. Thanks for listening.
This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute legal, financial, or real estate advice. Listeners should always consult licensed professionals for guidance specific to their situation. Brian and Zach Copeland are licensed real estate agents with Compass, 615-522-5100. Music Dusty Boots by Eco Leaks, Nashville and Beyond, copyright 2026.